Hello everyone, my name is Sue Sears. I'm the instructor of Special Education 671 Advanced Study of Literacy Problems. Welcome to week 1. We're going to start week 1 by looking at the course syllabus. Just a very brief video. Contact information. Very important to me is that you get in touch with me if you have any questions or any concerns. And you can do so by calling me. My office number is 818-677-5000, or email me at sue.sears@csun.edu. I do not have set office hours, but I schedule them on an individual basis. If you'd like to come see me, please don't hesitate to ask and to contact me. When we begin tutoring, the tutoring will occur in the Teaching Learning Counseling Consortium, or the TLC, room 106. The conceptual framework should be very familiar to you, whether you are an elementary education graduate student or a special education graduate student. All faculty, no matter the department, views this as sort of our guiding principles. Valuing excellence, evidence, ethical and caring professionals, collaborative partnerships, and communities of diverse learners. I hope that this course contributes to your becoming creative and reflective thinking practitioners. This specific course addresses literacy problems. We're looking at youngsters and adolescents who are really struggling with reading. It includes information about literacy processes, assessment and instructional practices, some about research methodologies, and a relationship which is important to me is that between language and literacy. And as you know, this particular course requires a supervised clinical experience. It includes, and I'm happy to say it includes, master's and postmaster's certificate students, both in elementary education and special education, in teacher education and educational therapy. And it's this mix which I think really makes it a joy for me to teach this class, and a mix which I hope I can build upon and take advantage of in making this a good experience for you. This particular course has 2 required textbooks. The first is Words Their Way, Word Study for Phonics, Vocabulary, and Spelling Instruction. And the second is I Read It, But I Don't Get It. There is a third optional text, and we'll talk a little bit about that option, Proust and the Squid, the Story and Science of the Reading Brain. So let's look at this first textbook, Words Their Way, Word Study for Phonics, Vocabulary, and Spelling Instruction. It is a very, very practical text. Embedded within the discussions of different developmental stages are research studies and research which supports the positions that the authors assert. But above and beyond, I think, is its very practicality. And I think that's the value and the reason why I keep coming back to this particular textbook. There are colored pages where the margins are colored, and those are the pages where there are specific resources and specific activities that relate to specific stages of literacy development. It's a very practical, but it's also in some ways a very dense textbook, and really the only way to appreciate its value is to just get in there and muck around with the activities. And I hope that we have a chance to do that this semester. At the back of the textbook, there is a code, and use that code to access what are considerable online resources. So I hope you find Words Their Way to be a useful book for you. As it suggests, it focuses on word study. It does not go beyond the single word. It talks about phonics, it talks about vocabulary, and it talks about spelling. So no, it does not talk about comprehension. And while you may feel, and while I think it is geared toward the younger child, the understandings that you can gain from it and some of the activities and resources are also very applicable to older struggling readers. The second textbook is I Read It, But I Don't Get It by Chris Tavani. And in contrast, this book is dedicated to adolescent readers, and it focuses exclusively on comprehension. However, again, I would suggest that the strategies Chris Tavani describes can equally be, with some adaptation, used with younger readers. So hopefully these two required textbooks, Words Their Way and I Read It But I Don't Get It, complement another one enough that you'll come away with a sense of some very practical strategies and teaching practices. I've also selected readings from Best Practices in Literacy Instruction. And these chapters are written by experts in the fields of phonemic awareness and phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension of narrative texts, and comprehension of expository texts. The optional book is Proust and the Squid by Marianne Wolf, and it looks at the reading brain. It looks at literacy development and writing development, both historically as well as individually. And it talks about, her particular interest is in the brain, which has difficulty reading. So if you are interested in learning more about literacy from a neurocognitive perspective, you may want to pick up this textbook, but know that the chapters will also be posted on Canvas. So those are the textbooks. I have a few other readings primarily to complement Words Their Way. A piece by Louisa Cook Moats on spelling and its relationship to reading. A piece on the Latin-Greek connection, morphology, and morphological study by Rosinski. And also a piece on phonological awareness by Yop and Yop. So those are the textbooks and the readings. Let's turn to the assignments. I've organized the assignments into relatively two components that align with the two components of the course. Those two components being readings and online lectures and the clinical experience. So the first assignments are exercises, and these are assigned the first 4 weeks of class beginning this week and due next week. They're short submissions. In the past, I've had students submit those on Moodle, but this time I want you to email them to me. They're really designed to engage you with the content of the readings and to be, in some cases, I hope, just kind of fun things to do, and also model some of the instructional principles that we'll be reading about. The second set of assignments are quizzes. I just have two. They're really comprehension checks of key course readings and lectures, and I will use them to say, okay, this looks like what we're all understanding, and this may be what we're having some difficulty with. And we'll talk about those in these first few weeks. They will come from the two required texts, Words Their Way and I Read It But I Don't Get It. An activity is due the first week that we meet together on campus, February 26th. I want you to bring in your activity and be prepared to share it with colleagues. It is to come directly from Words Their Way, and it should be prepared as such that you could really implement it. I'm not asking that you implement it. It would be great if you did. But I want you to get in there and look at those activities and prepare one for yourself and for your colleagues. The responses then align with and draw upon the chapters from best practices in literacy instruction. And I will provide you with a prompt. It will require application of what you're reading in those chapters, as well as the integration with what you have already read in Words Their Way and I Read It But I Don't Get It. And finally, I've added something this semester a little bit different from previous semesters. I want to give you a choice here. So for those of you who might be more interested in reading Proust and the Squid, The Story and Science of the Reading Brain, I want to give you an opportunity to read what is really a lovely book. But at the same time, ask you to respond to some prompts that will focus primarily on what's intriguing about the content and how it informs your thinking about reading, those who struggle to read, and the technology of writing in the 21st century. If that's not so appealing to you, but what rather might appeal to you more, is to review some commercially prepared literacy materials and programs. Oftentimes, graduates will email me and say, I'm in a new position, I want to, and I've been given money to purchase a literacy program, what would you recommend? And this is an opportunity to really delve into some of those literacy programs on a careful basis and review them. So I'll give you a list of those programs and the guidelines as we get further into the semester, but you might be thinking about which of those options you would like to pursue. So those are assignments that have to do with the readings and the lectures. There are 2 assignments that have to do with the clinical experience in the Special Education Literacy Laboratory. The first assignment is due weekly, and these are clinical notes. And the clinical notes are an opportunity for me to see what you're planning to do in the session, as well as your reflection on how the session went. How the student performed, the things that you might do differently. And so these follow a format. If you took Special Education 502, you'll see that it's a similar format, although it's a little bit different. Again, they are due every Thursday prior to your next session on Monday. And it's important that these get submitted in a timely fashion so that I try to set aside at least a portion of Friday for reviewing these clinical notes and getting my feedback to you so that if you need to do something, if you need to make some adjustments, you have time to do so before the Monday session. So thank you in advance for getting these in on time before midnight Thursday. And then the last assignment is a parent report. We have parent conferences this semester. They'll be on May 7th. A draft of that report is due to me on April 23rd. That gives me time to turn it back to you and for you to do some revision and some editing. Guidelines for the report will be, certainly will be provided. I think the grades is self-explanatory. There are due dates there as well as the points. As you can see, the class is divided. Half is really the readings and the online lectures. Half is the clinical experience. Roughly, I would say, I think of this course as sort of occurring in thirds. The first third, in my mind, is looking at what to do and how to do it. In other words, what are practical recommendations for assessment and particularly for instruction? And I approach this from a developmental perspective, using Words Their Way as the frame, and I read it but I don't get it for the comprehension piece. So this week we're looking at Chapter 1 in Words Their Way. There is a second video for you to view. The second week of class, we'll be looking at emergent and early readers and spellers, and that's chapters 4 and 5. I'm not asking you to look at chapters 2 and 3, although you're certainly welcome to do so. And I'm supplementing that with a piece on phonological awareness as child's play. In week 3, we look at transitional readers and spellers, which is addressed in chapters 5 and 6 of Words Their Way, as well as Mode's piece on how spelling supports reading. Week 4, we're looking at intermediate and advanced readers and spellers. Chapter 7 looks at structural analysis and spelling patterns, and Chapter 8 looks at derivational relations, and it's the first time that we address meaning, and that's in Chapter 8. Supplemented with the Latin-Greek connection by Rosinski, which talks about morphological study. And then finally, in week 5, we tackle the entire text. I read it, but I don't get it. The second sort of third of the course, I think, looks more deeply at the research, looking at best practices in phonological awareness and phonics, fluency instruction, vocabulary development, and understanding of narrative and informational or expository text. And I'll be asking you then to think back on your very practical readings from the first third of this semester in Words Their Way, and I read it but I don't get it, as you integrate the research with practice. Here we're tutoring, so please note that the dates in parentheses are when your clinical notes are due to me. And the last third of the course, I'm hoping is an opportunity for you to kind of branch out into some of your own interests, whether it be Proust and the Squid or a critical review of a literacy program. The clinical notes continue. On April 23rd, I'm asking for a draft of your parent report, and on May 7th, we have parent conferences and your final parent report. The final exam week is when your paper is due. Just a few notes, things to remember. Once again, please get your clinical notes in on time. Please get your draft of your parent report in on time. I think that's the professionalism we're looking to support in all of our students. Be respectful of your classmates. Goes without saying. If you are seeking accommodations, you must be registered with DRES. And finally, because this has this heavy online component, it's very important for you to communicate and for us to communicate with one another. Please do not hesitate to question or ask for clarification. Please do not hesitate to contact me at any time, and I will try to get back to you as quickly as I can. So welcome, and I look forward to this semester.